The rain was falling so hard that morning you could barely see the neon. Open sign through the diner window. Inside, the place was almost empty. Just the low hum of an old radio and the smell of fresh coffee. At the counter sat one man, shoulders tired, eyes soft with quiet hope. His name was Rowan Carter, 34 years old, single dad, working double shifts at the lumber yard just to keep the lights on. In front of him sat the first real breakfast he'd allowed himself in weeks. 2 eggs over easy, crispy hash browns, and a thick bacon sandwich on toasted just right. $7.12. Every last dollar he had in the world until payday. He unwrapped the sandwich slowly, breathing in the warmth. When the bell above the door gave a weak, shivering chime, a young woman stumbled inside, soaked through, shaking like the cold had gotten inside her bones. Long blonde hair was plastered flat against her face and neck, pulled into a dripping high ponytail. Her red dress, once bright and beautiful, now clung heavy and dark to her skin. She didn't look left or right. She just stood there, dripping on the black and white tiles, and whispered the smallest, most broken voice said, Does anyone have anything I could eat, please? The waitress froze mid-pour. 2 men in the corner booth looked away. Rowan felt his heart crack wide open. He thought of his little girl, Ava, asleep back home with the way she always asked, Daddy, if someone's hungry, do we share even when we're hungry too? He didn't hesitate. He stood, walked straight to the stranger, and gently placed the warm plate in her trembling hands. Here, he said quietly. This is for you. You need it more than I do. She stared at the sandwich like it was made of gold. Then she slid down the wall and sat right there on the floor, eating in tiny, careful bites, while silent tears ran down her cheeks and mixed with the raindrops. Rowan pulled up a stool, close enough to let her know she wasn't alone, far enough to give her space. When the plate was empty, she finally looked up. Thank you, she whispered. My name is Ara. Rowan smiled softly. I'm Rowan. You're safe here, Ara. He didn't ask questions. Some stories are too heavy to tell when you're still carrying them. Instead, he took off his old grey hoodie and draped it over her shoulders. Even though it left him in just a thin t-shirt, he pressed the last 3 quarters and a crumpled $5 bill into her palm for coffee. Later, he said, even though it meant he and Ava would be eating plain pasta again tonight. When the rain finally slowed to a whisper, Ara stood, looked at him once, with eyes that held oceans of gratitude, and walked back into the grey morning. Rowan watched her go and sent up a quiet prayer that the world would be gentle with her from now on. He truly believed that was the end of it. $7.12 worth of kindness on a rainy day. He went back to long nights, tight budgets, and bedtime stories under a roof that still leaked in the corner. 4 weeks later, a thick cream envelope arrived. Heavy paper, gold embossed lettering. The kind of envelope that makes your heart stop before you even open it. Mr. Rowan Carter is requested at the offices of Ellis and Rowe concerning a confidential matter involving Miss Arabella Vincent. His hands shook as he read it. Lawyers, debt, trouble. But something deeper than fear, something that felt like love in motion, put him on the early bus downtown. He had to know she was all right. The law firm was everything his life wasn't. Marble floors, quiet voices, windows that looked out over the whole city like it belonged to someone else. In his oldest jeans and the same work boots he'd worn that rainy morning, Rowan felt tiny. They led him to a sun-filled conference room where 2 attorneys waited with gentle eyes and a thick leather folder. Mr. Carter, the older one began, voice soft. Miss Arabella Vincent is safe and beginning to heal, thanks almost entirely to the morning you met her. Rowan let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for a month. But why am I here, he asked. They slid a photograph across the table. It was Ara, dry, radiant, smiling in front of a famous Los Angeles gallery. Blonde hair perfect, red dress stunning. Nothing like the ghost from the diner floor. Miss Vincent is an award-winning fine art photographer, they explained gently, and the only heir to the Vincent Family Foundation. 6 months ago, she suffered a devastating betrayal that destroyed her trust in almost everyone. She walked away from everything, money, protection, fame, because she needed to remember who she was when no one was watching. For weeks she lived on the streets, invisible, until the morning a stranger looked at her and saw a person worth feeding. Rowan's eyes filled. The younger attorney continued, voice thick with emotion. She told us word for word. He gave me the only food he had when I had already stopped believing in people. He looked at me like I still mattered. So I'm giving him every tomorrow he's been too tired to dream about. They opened the folder. Inside were papers that made Rowan's heart stop all over again. A paid-off modest house in a safe neighborhood. Full college fund for Ava. Complete health care for both of them. 5 full years of living expenses deposited in trust. And enrollment fees already covered for the architectural drafting program Rowan had bookmarked on his phone for 3 years, but never dared click apply. Rowan couldn't speak. Tears fell onto the papers as he whispered, "It was only $7. The older attorney smiled through glassy eyes. $7.12 bought back 2 futures that day. He walked out into sunlight that felt like forgiveness. The folder in his arms felt lighter than air and heavier than hope at the same time. In the gentle, beautiful year that followed, everything changed in the quietest, most perfect ways. Rowan and Ava moved into a little blue house with a porch swing and a kitchen that always smelled like cookies. Ava started dance classes and laughed so loud the neighbors smiled through the walls. Rowan began his drafting courses with straight A's and a heart so full it almost hurt to breathe. Every few Sundays, he drives back to that same diner, orders 2 coffees and sits by the same window. Just in case, he never saw Ara again. But every single morning, when he wakes up without the old fear, pressing down on his chest, he feels her gratitude like warm sunlight across the kitchen table. Because one rainy morning, all he did was hand over a $7 breakfast. And a stranger decided to hand him back an entire lifetime of tomorrows wrapped in grace. If this story warmed even the smallest corner of your heart, please press that like button. Leave a comment telling me the last time you gave away the very thing you needed most. And share this video with someone who needs to remember that kindness is the only investment that never fails. Because sometimes $7.12 given with love is enough to buy a whole future neither of you knew was waiting. Thank you for watching, beautiful soul. I'll see you in the next story, and maybe we'll all leave an extra plate at the table, just in case someone needs it more than we do.